Hello and welcome. In today's exciting episode, I take this gorgeous metallic Marc Jacobs tweed in autumn and winter tones and I turn it into this Chanel style jacket.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
So here we have all the pieces of this lovely tweed. It's a Marc Jacobs metallic tweed. So I'm sneezing like crazy because it's just got lots of little bits to it. But yeah, so I cut out one of each piece of the tweed for the outer jacket and also the same again in the structural layer. I'm using a nylon netting, the same that you use for a 1950s petticoat, so a stiff net fabric as my structural layer. So I've put down the backing pieces all in order, and then on top I carefully put each piece of tweed, and I've got the silk for the lining to the side, so we'll get to that later. For now we'll just do the outer jacket. So once all the bits are in order and they're all lined up, next step is to pin everything together, where I'm going to sew with the machine. So yeah, everything's pinned now and ready to get the machine out and sew it. So once I sewed everything, then I just check the inside and then turn it over and just check the outside just to make sure all the long seams are good, and which they are. And once they're fine, then I just have to pin the tops together to make the shoulders. So the front top and the back top, pin them together on each side, and then I just machine sew them. And then the next step is to, I machine sew the sleeves as well, obviously. And the next step is to just pin down all the seam allowance on every seam that I've just done. And yeah, I'll hand sew those down. So I hand stitched all of the seam allowances down, every single one on every single panel. And now I'm making you look at every single one because of all the work I had to do. No, it does take a lot of time, but the jacket just looks so beautiful once it's done. And I did the sleeves as well. And once they were done, you can't really see inside. So once they were done, the next thing was to sew the structural layer to the actual tweed layer. And I just do this by hand. I use 2 threads and I double it over. So there's actually 4 threads all up. And yeah, you sort of have to catch all the tweed, but you also don't want the thread visible from the outside. So it's a real skill to it, but once you get into the rhythm of it, it's quite easy to do. And yeah, the tweeds are gorgeous fabrics, but essentially they're really expensive yarns and tweed and threads woven together loosely. Sort of the more expensive a tweed is, usually the looser they're woven together. And so, yeah, they need some structural support, or they'll just start sagging the minute you hang them up and the minute you start wearing them. So, yeah, I find that having the netting, the structural layer of netting really helps it. And also I like boxy silhouette. I love the silhouette you get from a boxy look. And also, yeah, I embellish a lot of my jackets with beads and sequins, so they need the support of a structural layer. But even if I didn't do that, I'd still like the look of it. And also, I want to keep my jackets for 50, 100 years. I want them to still look good and be wearable decades from now. And I'm too lazy to fix them every few years. So, yeah, that's why I have a structural layer on my jackets. But you do you. Lots of people like different things. So yeah, once I'd done that, then I did the hem and the cuffs on the sleeves, and I did them by hand as well. So now I'm just putting it on the mannequin to check it, and now it is time to attach the sleeves. So I pinch the top of the sleeve and the top of the jacket, and then I turn them inside out and I pin the top, I pin the 2 bottoms together, then I do the bottom half of and then I ease in the top half because there's always a little bit of difference between the top of the sleeve and the sleeve style, like where you have to fit the sleeve into. So yeah, and then I machine sew it, then I turn it out and just check there's no puckers or anything like that. And if there's something wrong, you have to unpick it and start again. If it's fine, then you go around it again with your machine carefully and just reinforce it, because can be a lot of strain on the sleeves, on that shoulder joint. And this is what this tweed is. It's basically just fluffy glitter. And yeah, so after you've machine sewed it, you have to trim it down a little in the bottom half, just under the arm, so that you can stitch it down properly and it sits right. But yeah, so I was sneezing every time I had to snip some stuff off. It just sort of created this cloud of fluffy glitter basically, and it just made me sneeze so much. Now that it's finished, like I'm doing this voiceover after it's done, and now that it's done, it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, it was very sneezy to make. And this is a silk that I used for the lining. It's so gorgeous. It's digital printed, so that's how they managed to get that effect of all the different types of application. It sort of looks three-dimensional, and all the colors, it's just so beautiful. I love it so much. If you can afford to use Italian silk, then I definitely recommend it. The jackets I go to most, of all the jackets I've made, the ones with Italian silk lining, the expensive, really soft lining, are the ones that I go to the most. And like some of my jackets I've had for 13 years. So you just pin the lining to the jacket and then just check everything's fine, then machine sew it. But yeah, the jackets I've had, like some jackets I've had for over 10 years. And the ones with the Italian silk lining, like that I invested, they're more expensive. They just hold up. They look like they were just made. Whereas some of the first ones I made, I thought I could just cut corners and use a synthetic lining. And yeah, you can really tell the difference. They do not age well. After a couple of years, you have to pull it out and just put a new lining in. And they just do not look good. After about 10 wears, you're like, ugh, this is yuck. No matter what, like the silk ones still look absolutely pristine and beautiful. It's just, yeah, synthetic things don't react well to humans, I think. But yeah, silk just wears so beautifully. Anyway, so you do the collar and you pin that, and then you sew it very carefully, and then you turn it through and just check that everything's right, and then you reinforce it, so you sew it again. And then once you've sewn it, then you have to trim down the excess seam allowance, just so that when you turn it out, the collar will sit well, or neckline, whatever you want to call it. So I've turned it out, and you just have to pin all the layers together because there's all the seams in there. It's just so bulky, you have to top stitch over the edges. I don't like a visible top stitch, so I just do I guess pin stitch, you might call it, but I'd call it a top stitch that isn't visible. So yeah, you just have to go around from the front up to the collar, around the neck, down again, and yeah, it takes a lot of time to do the top stitching. And when you almost finish and you have to do some more hand stitching, it is a bit of a drag, but it just looks so beautiful once it's done. And then the last step is you have to pin down your lining and just hand stitch that down. But I'm going to be beading mine, not in this episode, but before I start wearing it, I'm going to bead this jacket. So I'm just not going to stitch down the lining for now, because you need to access the inside of the jacket when you're doing beading. But yeah, I still haven't quite decided what I'm going to do for the beading, because this reminds me of that vintage Dior gown. This photo was taken after it had gone round on the Dior exhibition that toured the world. After they finished touring that exhibition around the world, it came back to Paris. And before it went on display in the new Dior museum in Paris, it got the conservation did their thing again. So yeah, here it is. So the white pinkish one is, well, they've sort of faded over the 50 years or 70 years, gosh. They were both created in 1949, and yeah, the whitish one, here's the detail of that one with the feathered sequins and just the standard one, and the actual dress, all the petals are made out of netting, which is, yeah, hence my obsession with using netting and everything. But yeah, this one here was revolutionary. So the white one is Venus, and this one here is called Junon, and she's revolutionary because it's not just blue and white, it's got little bits of rust in there, and that is just, it was just so astounding for the time because you know, the only people who can afford Christian Dior or any haute couture gowns were people who were either new money or really, really old money. And of course, the old money people didn't want people thinking they were rotting and, you know, their name was decaying. And the new people wanted everything nice and shiny and new. So they didn't want anything, you know, they just wanted really nice and shiny and new. But Dior made this dress and it had built-in rust in it. And like in the sequence, it's Lesage sequence. So it was just, I don't know. As someone who does beading and like embellishment, it is just, it's one of the most important pieces in fashion history to me. And I absolutely love it. So yeah, this Marc Jacobs metallic tweed reminds me of that. So anyway, yeah, I still don't know what I'm going to embellish this jacket with. I do know I'm going to embellish it, but I would like to somehow nod to, you know, sort of reference the Venus and Junon. So maybe blue beads or something, or I'm not sure. But anyway, so this is the finished jacket, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. Now I can stop sneezing now that it's all finished and everything is closed. So yeah, I think I'll put it aside for a little bit and really think about what sort of beading I want to put on it, because yeah, I want something, because I mean, it's got the gorgeous linings. I'm going to wear it a lot anyway, probably. And the actual tweed is pretty fabulous too. So yeah, I really want the beading to do it justice. So yeah, that is the finished jacket. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. And yeah, not sure there's anything else to say. Thank you for watching. And yeah, have fun making your own Chanel style jacket.